My ex used me to pay off her debt, then dumped me for a richer man. Now, she's begging for the life she destroyed. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and looking back, I realize I ignored every red flag because I thought love meant sacrifice. I spent most of my early 20s grinding. 2 jobs, constant overtime, and barely any sleep, because I didn't want to repeat the unstable life I grew up in. By the time I met Mia, I felt like I finally had some footing. I wasn't rich, but I was steady. And at that point in my life, steady felt like a luxury I had earned. Mia came into my world like a warm breeze. She was charming in this effortless way that made people lean in when she spoke. She laughed with her whole body, touched your arm when she talked, and always made you feel like you were the only person in the room. On our third date, she told me she had financial trauma from her past. Something about growing up poor, being screwed over by family, and constantly feeling unsafe. The way she said it, soft and trembling, made me want to protect her before I even knew what I was agreeing to. But even early on, the emotional imbalance showed itself. I was the steady one, the listener, the fixer, the anchor. She'd call me at 2 a.m., crying about how overwhelmed she felt, and I'd sit in the dark, whispering that everything would be okay. But when I had a hard day, she'd brush it off with, "You're strong, babe. You'll figure it out." She relied on me like I was a lifeline, yet I couldn't rely on her at all. Still, I kept telling myself relationships weren't supposed to be perfectly balanced. I thought maybe she just needed more time to trust me, more time to feel safe, more time to heal. But then one night, with her voice shaking and her eyes avoiding mine, she whispered, "I'm drowning in debt, and I don't know what to do." And that's when everything quietly shifted. I wish I could say I reacted with logic or caution, but the truth is, the moment Mia said she was drowning, something in me snapped into protector mode. She sat on the edge of my couch, legs pulled to her chest, sleeves covering half her hands like she was trying to make herself smaller. Her voice cracked when she said, "I don't even open the bills anymore. I can't. It makes me sick." And I remember thinking, not about the money, but about how scared she looked. "Tell me what's going on," I said gently. She shook her head, hair falling into her face. "No, you'll think I'm irresponsible. Everyone does." I moved closer, lowering my voice. "Mia, I'm not everyone." She finally handed me her phone with trembling fingers, and I saw the notifications. Credit cards maxed out, overdue payments, loan reminders stacked like a wall of panic. Inside, my stomach tightened, but she looked at me like I was the only safe place she had left. She started explaining through tears how she'd inherited her mom's medical debt, how predatory lenders had trapped her, how she'd been juggling everything alone for years. Her story was messy, emotional, and full of details that didn't completely add up. But the vulnerability was convincing. Or maybe I wanted to believe her more than I wanted the truth. Over the next weeks, helping her became a routine. "Can you cover this bill? Just until I get paid. Can you spot me for groceries? I promise I'll pay you back." Every time, the guilt in her eyes made me cave. And every time, she'd curl into my chest afterward, whispering, "I don't know how I'd survive without you." But the imbalance deepened. She offered comfort only when she needed something. If I even hinted at my own stress, she'd say, "You're strong, babe. You'll manage." As if my feelings were inconveniences. Then one afternoon, after pacing my apartment for almost an hour, she said in a hesitant voice, Maybe it would just be easier if we combined finances." That was the moment I should have stopped and questioned everything. But instead, I felt myself slipping deeper. I didn't notice the drain at first. It was slow, quiet, like someone turning down the dimmer switch on my life one notch at a time. I picked up extra shifts, telling myself it was temporary, that once Mia got back on her feet, things would level out. But then, I started skipping things I loved. Basketball with my friends, weekend trips home, even simple nights where I used to decompress. Every free moment became about meeting some new financial emergency she suddenly couldn't handle. "Babe, can you cover my phone bill? They're threatening to shut it off." "Mia, I just paid your electric bill last week." I know. I'm sorry. I just thought you loved me enough to help until things get better." It was always like that. Soft, guilt-laced persuasion wrapped in affection. She'd melt into my arms afterward, telling me I was her rock, her safe place, her miracle. And God, it felt good to be needed. That was the part that hooked me. The emotional reward came in small, intoxicating doses. Meanwhile, I pushed off my own needs. I canceled a dentist appointment because I couldn't afford it after covering her unexpected loan payment. I stopped saving for the car I wanted because she needed help with groceries. Again, my bank account became a revolving door. Money came in, Mia took it, and somehow I was always trying to catch up. Sometimes, late at night after she fell asleep, I'd stare at my bank app and feel this cold, numb panic creeping up my spine. But then she'd shift in her sleep, wrap her arm around me, and mumble, "Don't leave me. You're all I have." And the panic would dissolve into guilt, into responsibility, into this twisted sense of loyalty I didn't know how to detach from. Then, one evening, with her voice unusually calm, almost rehearsed, she said, "There's one last debt, but it's big. If we pay it, I'll finally be free." My heart dropped. Something told me this time would be different, and not in a good way. When she finally told me the number, it felt like the air got sucked out of my lungs. It wasn't a bill. It was a sentence. More than everything I had saved. More than what someone like me should ever pull out of their account for anyone who wasn't family. But Mia sat there on my couch, knees pressed together, fingers twisted tightly, whispering, "If I don't pay this, I don't know what will happen to me." I tried to breathe through the panic. "Mia, this is everything I have." Her eyes filled instantly. "I know. That's why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd feel obligated, and I hate that. I just want to stop being scared all the time." Her voice cracked on the last word, and I swear something inside me snapped. I didn't want her to feel scared. I didn't want anyone to feel what I'd felt growing up. Helpless, cornered, ashamed. So before I could rethink it, I heard myself say, "I'll take care of it." The relief on her face was immediate and overwhelming. She threw her arms around me, kissing my neck, whispering, "Thank you, thank you. I promise this is it. After this, we'll finally have a real future. Just you and me." For the next week, she was a completely different person. Tender, affectionate, talking about trips we'd take, places we'd move, dogs we'd adopt. She painted this perfect little life like she'd been rehearsing it for months. And I let myself believe it. I let myself feel like the sacrifice meant something. But everything changed the day the debt finally got paid. It was like someone flipped a switch inside her. She grew distant, short texting me, ignoring my calls, claiming she was exhausted or mentally drained whenever I asked if something was wrong. And then, one night, as she stood in my kitchen scrolling her phone, I watched her smile, really smile, for the first time in days. Not at me, at a message she hurriedly turned away from. That was the moment something cold settled into my gut, something she didn't bother hiding anymore. I tried to ignore that smile at first. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a friend, maybe a joke. Maybe I was just tired. But the distance kept growing. Little things at first. She stopped holding my hand when we walked, stopped thanking me for small things, stopped leaning her head on my shoulder during movies. It felt like she was slowly peeling herself off me, one layer at a time. One night, I finally asked, "Mia, is something going on?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Not everything is about you, babe. You're being clingy." "Clingy?" I repeated, stunned. She sighed loudly, tossing her phone onto the couch. "Yes. Since when did you become so insecure? I thought you were strong." Her tone wasn't confused. It was irritated, like I was the inconvenience. After that, the imbalance hit a new level. She'd disappear for hours with no explanation. When I asked where she'd been, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Out. I don't owe you a report." Meanwhile, I was the one paying her bills, her groceries, her everything. And somehow, she still managed to make me feel like I was demanding too much by simply wanting honesty. But the worst part wasn't the distance. It was the subtle contempt. The way she'd say, "You're so basic sometimes," or "You never push yourself," or "Maybe you should try dressing better. You're getting too comfortable." Each comment landed like a quiet slap, and I absorbed every single one. One evening, I went to throw away some trash and noticed a crumpled receipt in her jacket pocket. An expensive restaurant, 2 entrees, 2 drinks, signed with a little heart next to the total. My hands went cold as I stared at it. "Mia?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced over casually. "What? You went out last night?" "Yeah," she said. "With coworkers. Why?" But her eyes flickered. Just for a second. A tiny, sharp, telling flicker. That was when suspicion stopped being a quiet whisper and became a steady, pounding drumbeat in my chest. That flicker in her eyes wouldn't leave my mind. It followed me for days. Through work, through sleepless nights, through every forced conversation where she acted like nothing was wrong. Finally, one night after she fell asleep on my couch, I picked up her phone. I hated myself for doing it, but I hated the gnawing doubt even more. My hand shook as I typed in her passcode, one she had given me months ago when she wanted full transparency. What I found made my stomach drop. There were hidden Instagram stories, close friends only posts, of her dressed up at rooftop bars, sitting beside a well-dressed older guy. His name was Adrian. I recognized him instantly from her stories, the co-worker she always said was harmless. But the way they were posed, the way he had his arm around her waist, the way she leaned into him, glowing, it wasn't harmless. My chest tightened as I kept scrolling. Messages, late-night exchanges, plans, inside jokes, pictures, and then one message that hit me like a punch to the ribs. Mia. He's sweet, but too safe. Adrian feels like a real future. My throat closed. Sweet, but safe. That was me. The guy who emptied his savings for her. The guy who lost sleep, skipped meals, worked extra shifts, all so she could breathe a little easier. When she woke up, I confronted her. Mia, who is Adrian? She stared at me for a long second, then exhaled sharply. You went through my phone? Are you serious? That's what you're focusing on? I said, voice shaking. Just tell me the truth. She stood, arms crossed, her face cold, colder than I'd ever seen. Fine. If you want honesty, Adrian is better. He's more stable. He can offer what you can't. I stayed because I needed help, and now I don't. My heart dropped into silence. And the debt? Everything I paid? I whispered. She shrugged. I didn't ask you to do that. You chose it. Then, with terrifying calm, she said, This isn't working. I'm moving in with Adrian. And just like that, she walked out of my apartment, leaving me with nothing but the echo of a door that felt like it closed on my entire world. When the door shut, something inside me went cold, like whatever warmth I had left drained out through the cracks she carved into me. At first, I just sat there on the floor, staring at the spot where she'd been standing moments earlier. It didn't feel real. It didn't even feel like heartbreak. It felt like the floor had been yanked out from under my entire life, and I was free-falling without anything to grab onto. The next morning, the consequences hit like a truck. My bank account was nearly empty. Rent was due, my car insurance, my student loan payment. I'd spent months keeping her afloat, and now I didn't have enough to keep myself standing. I kept refreshing my banking app like it would magically refill itself if I stared long enough. Work became hell. I'd sit at my desk numb, unable to focus, replaying her words. He can offer what you can't. Whenever someone asked if I was okay, I'd force a smile and say, just tired. But inside, I felt hollow, used, disposable. One night, my friend Marcus dropped by unannounced. Dude, you look like death, he said as soon as I opened the door. I'm fine, I muttered. No, you're not. He stepped inside and scanned my apartment. Unwashed dishes, unopened mail, the blanket I'd been sleeping under on the couch. What the hell happened? I tried to say the words, but they tasted like shame. She left, I finally whispered. For someone richer. Marcus stared at me, jaw clenched. After everything you did for her? I nodded. He exhaled sharply and shook his head, furious on my behalf. But even his anger couldn't touch the weight crushing me. Because the truth was brutal. I had built my entire routine around Mia's needs. Without her, my life felt like a half-collapsed house. Nothing was where it used to be, and nothing felt stable. The worst part came 2 days later. As I scrolled through social media, I saw a picture of Mia and Adrian at a fancy restaurant. Her wearing a dress I bought, smiling like she'd finally upgraded. The caption read, Finally with a real man. That was the moment something inside me quietly broke, and the fall wasn't done yet. Rock bottom didn't hit like a sudden crash. It was slower, like sinking in deep water, watching the surface drift farther away every time I tried to swim upward. After seeing that picture of Mia and Adrian, something in me shut off. I stopped answering texts, stopped showing up to hangouts. I'd go to work, stare blankly at my monitor, go home, and collapse on the couch without eating. My life felt like it had shrunk into a single suffocating loop. One night, I got a message from an old mutual friend, Lila. Hey, can we talk? It's about Mia. Part of me didn't want to hear anything else, but some desperate, wounded part needed answers. "What about her?" I typed back. Lila replied almost instantly. "She's been bragging. You deserve to know." When we met at a quiet cafe, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I didn't want to get involved," she said, stirring her drink. "But Mia's been telling people you were basically her financial stepping stone." I felt my chest tighten. "What does that mean?" Lila sighed. "She said she only stayed long enough to clear her debt. Adrian didn't want to date someone with financial baggage, so she wanted to show she could upgrade her life first." My jaw went numb. She said that? Word for word. Hearing it out loud, hearing it confirmed, broke something I didn't know was still intact. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was humiliation layered on top of exhaustion, layered on top of the realization that someone I loved saw me as nothing but a stepping stone to a better man. Then Lila hesitated before adding one last blow. "She also lied about some of the debt. A lot of it wasn't hers. She said people were easier to control when they felt needed." The words stung like acid. That night, alone in my apartment, surrounded by overdue bills and empty silence, I finally felt it. The true bottom. The point where even breathing felt heavy. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "I don't even know who I was to her." But the worst part? I still didn't know how to climb back up. The night I hit bottom, something unexpected happened. Not a burst of motivation, not a sudden epiphany, just a quiet exhaustion that made me realize I couldn't keep drowning. I didn't rise because I felt strong. I rose because staying curled on that couch, surrounded by the wreckage of my life, hurt worse than standing up. So the next morning, I dragged myself into the shower, let the hot water burn my skin, and told myself, just get through today. At work, Marcus pulled me aside. "You look better," he said cautiously. "I'm not," I replied, "but I'm trying." "That's enough," he said, patting my shoulder. It was the first time in weeks I felt something other than numbness. I started small. I made a budget, an actual one. I opened the bills Mia had left me tangled in. I called companies, asked for extensions, negotiated payment plans. It was humiliating, but it was also grounding. Every step felt like taking back an inch of my life. And then something unexpected happened. A client at my job mentioned they needed help with social media on the side. "You're good with that stuff," he said. "Want the gig?" I hesitated, but I needed the money, so I took it. And the more I worked, the more word spread. Within a month, I had 3 side clients, and for the first time in a long time, I felt capable. I even went to therapy, though I almost talked myself out of it. The therapist didn't tell me anything profound. She just said, "You gave your heart to someone who didn't know how to value it. The problem isn't you." I didn't believe her right away, but hearing it helped. Meanwhile, Mia's perfect life started unraveling publicly. Subtle at first, cryptic captions about fake promises and people who change when you stop being useful. Then a picture of her alone at a bar. Then Adrian missing from her posts entirely. I tried not to care, but a part of me felt the shift, like a storm was coming again. Just not for me this time. I wasn't planning to follow her life anymore. I genuinely wasn't. But when her posts kept popping up, mutual friends, tagged photos, old connections, I couldn't ignore the pattern. First, the silence from Adrian. Then the captions dripping with self-pity. And then, the message to a mutual friend that eventually made its way to me. Apparently, Adrian wasn't the fairy tale she sold him as. One evening, Marcus and I were grabbing a late dinner when he said, "Bro, you won't believe what I heard." I rolled my eyes. "If it's about Mia, I don't want to know." "Just listen," he insisted. "Adrian didn't dump her because he found someone else. He dumped her because she lied to him about her debt, and he wanted her to pay her share of everything." I blinked. "Her share?" "Yeah. Turns out the rich guy was only rich on Instagram." A hollow laugh escaped me, surprising even myself. "Seriously?" Marcus nodded. "He expected her to split rent, groceries, bills, all the stuff you carried alone. She freaked out." Of course she did. Later that night, I got a message from Lila. "FYI, Mia's crashing at her friend's place. Adrian kicked her out. She's been crying nonstop." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Not out of pity, out of disbelief. She traded loyalty for luxury and ended up with neither, but the unraveling didn't stop there. Mia started posting long paragraphs about men who pretend to be financially stable and how she kept attracting selfish partners. The irony almost made me laugh. She uploaded pictures of cheap wine, dimly lit living rooms, captions like, healing era, and starting over is hard. One night, while I was editing a project for a client, my phone buzzed. Mia? Hey, can we talk? I stared at the screen, heartbeat slowing. Another message followed. I miss you. I don't know who else to turn to. I set my phone down, exhaling slowly. She wasn't done crashing, and somehow, she was about to pull me back into the wreckage, if I let her. I didn't respond right away. I let her messages sit there, glowing on my screen like little sparks trying to ignite the fire I'd already put out. But the next morning, I woke up to 3 more texts and a missed call, and then another, and then one more. By noon, she sent a voice note, her voice small, trembling, almost unrecognizable. I'm sorry, she whispered. I messed up. I messed up so bad, and I don't know who else to talk to. By evening, she was at my door. She looked nothing like the girl who walked out of my life with her chin high and her suitcase rolling behind her. Her makeup was smudged, her hair messy, her clothes wrinkled like she hadn't slept in days. She clutched her bag like a scared kid. Can we talk? She asked softly. I stepped aside, letting her in. She sat on the couch, the same one she cried on, laughed on, manipulated me on. I stayed standing. She took a shaky breath. Adrian, he wasn't who I thought he was. He had money, sure, but he expected me to carry my weight. He said I was high maintenance. Can you believe that? Her voice cracked, eyes filling. He yelled at me. He called me entitled. And when he found out I lied about the debt, he said I was a liability. He kicked me out. I said nothing. She kept going, voice breaking. I didn't appreciate you. You were the only person who ever truly cared. I see that now. I was stupid. I was selfish. I know that. But I miss you. I miss us. I finally sat down across from her. Why are you really here, Mia? Her tears spilled over. Because you made me feel safe. Because I know you love me. Because I need stability. I need someone who won't abandon me. She swallowed hard. I want to try again. I'm ready this time. I swear. My heart didn't race. My voice didn't shake. I just felt calm, detached, older. I'll give you an answer, I said quietly. But there's something I want to show you first. Her brows knitted. What is it? I stood, motioned for her to follow, and the calm inside me solidified into something sharp, something final. I led her toward my small home office, once cluttered with unpaid bills and silent shame, now organized, clean, alive with the hum of a computer and the soft glow of 2 monitors. She hesitated before stepping in, like she was walking into a room she didn't recognize. Because she wasn't. This wasn't the broken version of me she left behind. What is all this? Mia whispered. I leaned against the desk. This is what my life became after you left. She scanned the room, client folders neatly stacked, a whiteboard full of schedules, a small shelf with mail confirming payments from my side business. Her eyes widened as her gaze landed on a framed bank statement I'd hung on the wall for myself. Debt cleared. You paid everything off? She breathed. Yep, I nodded. Freelancing took off. I got promoted, started therapy, rebuilt everything you tore down. She blinked rapidly, her voice cracking. I didn't know. I thought you'd be lost without me. I was, I said plainly. But I didn't stay that way. She stepped closer, desperation creeping into her voice. We could fix this. I could support you now. I can try to contribute. I learned a lot, I swear. Her words tumbled out, frantic. Just give me one more chance, please. For a moment, I just looked at her. The woman who once felt like my whole future, now standing in the doorway of a life she never expected me to build. Then I shook my head. I forgive you, Mia, I said quietly. But forgiveness isn't an invitation back into my life. She froze, lips trembling. So, that's it? That's it. Her legs gave out, and she sat on the edge of the chair, burying her face in her hands. I have nothing left, she whispered. I lost everything. I felt a strange stillness wash over me. Not satisfaction, not cruelty, just closure. You didn't lose everything, I said softly. You lost me, and that's the consequence you chose. I walked her to the door. She didn't fight, Didn't yell, didn't beg again. She just stepped into the hallway, small, quiet, finally stripped of the power she once held over me. And as the door closed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not anger, not triumph, just peace.